both of you guys, your opinion on like training frequency and intensity on the table once you've gotten to that shirt up point.
Well, I mean, that depends. I mean, when I started arm wrestling, I was on the table once a week without fail. It got to the point where my recovery wasn't keeping up with that table time because I was doing practices once a week. Plus I was training in the gym 4 days a week at minimum, most of the time 5 days a week. And it got to the point where I dialed back to 4 or 5 days a week in the gym and 1 day on the table every 2 weeks. And that seemed to work fairly well. As I'm getting even advancing here even more in my age and my career and all that stuff, we're talking about going back to, as a club, once a week, but having a lot more discipline. So they're not a 4-hour practice. It's going to be like an hour and a half of very regimented stuff that we're doing. And there are so many factors to consider when you're talking about training intensity and all the variables you do. I also moved to 1 week of volume, 1 week of power. So it's almost a deload in the week 2 and recovery. So it's there's so many different things to consider when you're training somebody, but I think the most important thing is people listening to their body and what their body is telling them.
Yeah, good answer. For me, it's because I'm always I try to stay away from the table, not always, but maybe twice a month on the table. The problem with the table is I've tried to go in and try to say I'm just going to work one thing, or I'm just going to try to work on the attacking side of the table. But everyone always wants a piece of me, and everyone wants to try my hook, and and my ego will not say, sorry guys, I can't. So no matter how much pain or inflammation I have, or what kind of target I have going in, it's thrown out the window, and it's have a couple Red Bulls and just pull until I want to puke, and then it takes about 2-3 weeks to recover. I think I remember one quote from John Brzezinski in 2006. I remember him saying, when someone talking about it, is he trained for a tournament? He says, at this point, I don't need to train. I just need to be healthy. And I'm the same way. Like if I have a big tournament coming up, it's not what can I do after 15 years between now and what can I do? There's nothing. Maybe I can make minute improvements, but basically my only real concern is if I have inflammation, you got to get that shit out of and go in as 100. I can literally take a month off, do fuck all, and I won't lose any bit of performance. But if I try to rush it and I try to do 2-a-days, or I try to do a lot of statics leading up, and I come in at 95%, or I come in with a sore elbow, you might feel like, oh, I've done something, but you really haven't done anything in terms of you performing that day. So at a certain point, you just have to think it's all about health management. And for me, all my training revolves around my elbow management. Does my elbow feel awesome? If it does, we're doing heavy statics, we're getting on the table. If it's sore, it's dynamic stuff. If it's really sore, it's dynamic, lightweight stuff. That's how I look at everything.
Yeah. Well, Corey West has a question for Paul. Do you ever have plans on adding weight to pull supers later in your career?
No. No. I'll gladly jump into a class. But no, I'm like, my body wants to be, if I'm eating poorly, if I'm eating carbs and whatever, my body will settle in between 215 and 220. That's where it wants to be. It does, like I could gain beyond that at my age now, but it wouldn't, especially doing things naturally, I'm not going to be up there anytime soon unless I start really, really eating. When I'm clean, when I'm clean, my diet's totally clean, and I'm super regimented. My body will sit at like 208. That's where it wants to be, and I have no desire to be. In order to compete in that class, you've got to be huge. I mean, I know there's guys out there like Travis but even Travis,
Travis is still big. Yeah, he'll
get up to 300 pounds. I'm 5'11", man. No. I'll stay where I'm at.
There was a question on here today. This is for me. It said, Ryan, are you serious today regarding your challenge to Wagner Bortolato? Absolutely, I was serious. I would not back down from that challenge a little bit. Another comment, Devin is at the point where it's time to step down. Completely disagree with that. I think that's why would he do that? He just beat one of the strongest. I mean, we can argue about the style of the way he won, but that's ridiculous.
Quote unquote beat. Quote unquote asterisk beat. Yeah.
Oh God, it's a W. It's a W. It counts.
Yeah, it is a W for sure.
Yeah. Listen, the bottom line is regardless of where Devin Larratt is strength wise as far as the world goes, he should never go anywhere. You know what he brings to the sport, and his reach is unbelievable. You know, his personality. That alone, if he was arm wrestling from a wheelchair, he should still be arm wrestling.
Yeah, I was just going to say, him at 65 years old with crutches or a walker, he's still going to generate. And I'm harsh on him. I'm harsh on Wall. But I was at the last tournament I went to. A couple of guys came up to me and started asking questions about Wall. I didn't know them, and they started asking me questions about stuff. And I'm like, "Fuck, Wall has a reach. Like that is the premier viewing platform for any fucking arm wrestler out there. So regardless of my critique." I mean, shit, it's getting out there. It's reaching everyone.
It's weird, man. Yeah. It's got a weird reach too, and I don't know what's really what algorithms Facebook uses, but like for one of those Facebook videos to pick up that kind of traction is crazy. Mm-hmm. So,
well, Devin has transcended arm wrestling audiences. So, I mean, to say that there's some comments on here I'm not going to read because it's talking a lot of shit about Devin. And I don't think he deserves it at this point. No. But Gabi does enough of that for all of us. And there one question here is I think this is an awesome question. What if someone asked you, what do you get out of arm wrestling? What would the answer be to that question? What do you get out of arm wrestling?
It's you, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the ability. It's so first and foremost. It's the ability to compete at something beyond an age where you normally can compete athletically. Yeah. Period. End of story. Number two is the community aspect of it. Like Gabi said, you go to these tournaments and probably more than 50% of the reason you go is to chop it up with everybody and the people you haven't seen. And that's kind of, I mean, I've only been in sport for 3 years. And I've already made, you call them friends or acquaintances or whatever you want to call them. But like, there's a certain fraternity aspect to it that is like no other, So is there negativity in it? I know Doug Ehrlich talked about it on one of you guys' show. Yeah, sure, there's negativity. Sure, there's fake stuff. There's fake people. But I think a majority of the arm wrestling community is out to help the rest of the community. And I think it's a cool little niche sport, and that's a huge thing. But competition is everything. The ability to continue to compete and to to give me a reason to train. I spent 10 years, after not competing in football, just lifting weights, just to lift weights. So for me, it's now I have a reason. Now I have a focus point. Now I have a target rather than just going to the gym to lift weights to look good.
Yeah. Gabi?
Yeah, Paul makes all valid points. The problem with arm wrestling is it can't be a conscious decision to, I like arm wrestling, I like the community, I'm going to make a conscious effort to either, like I talked about it on another show, and so the one word that comes to my mind is just fucking passion. I don't care if it's badminton or croquet, but if something grabs you to the point where you wake up in the morning and you go through your daily stuff and you keep thinking of this one thing, you go to bed at night thinking how I can improve, how can I get my feet into it more, how can I, if it consumes you positively on a day in, day out, even hourly basis, what do you call that? You're blessed with a passion, and it's not about being popular, it's not about making money. And I think all of us, the great thing about arm wrestling, like Paul said, it's a small community and we want it to grow, so we're all fairly it's like a small family. And all my friends, I mean, I lose more. I mean, friends. Everyone I know right now, everyone I hang out with are arm wrestlers, right? So, I mean, I guess it's just it's something that can consume you, and it either does or doesn't. And if it does, man, you're in for one hell of a fucking path. Like, it's gonna win or lose. You're just gonna meet great people. You're gonna have fun. You're gonna go to practices. You're gonna go. I mean, I still think the coolest thing about fucking arm wrestling is getting in a car with 2-3 guys. When one guy has to fucking make weight and you're fucking stopping at Burger King and he's pissed off and you're laughing and one guy has a terrible day, one guy has a great day, you come back and you talk about it. I think that fucking shit is invaluable. As you get older and you realize that you're going to start losing shit in life, you're going to start losing your physique, you're going to start losing this and that. one thing you can always have is these fucking memories, and it's fucking awesome. I just think, yeah, if it consumes you, yeah, you're blessed.
So my answer to that question is, what do I get out of arm wrestling? It's community. It's also the fact that it's a one-on-one combat sport. I don't remember who, it might have been Devin that said it's the closest thing to getting in or maybe it was Travis, closest thing to getting in a fist fight without punching somebody in the face. Like it's a one-on-one sport where it's you and one other guy across the table from you. And aside from that, what I first fell in love with was the camaraderie of the whole thing and the fact that there was so much community around it. And I've got to see the world. I've got amazing memories from the sport, and it kind of just sucks you in and you fall in love with it. I've had lots of success along the way, but I would have been participating in this sport anyway. And I've given a lot of my life to this sport. A lot of people have, and also got to see the world. Man, I got to travel the world. I got friends all over the world, and I never would have done that without the sport of arm wrestling. I dip my toe in some other things, but it's not the same. It's not the same feeling, not the same experience. And arm wrestling has always been awesome. And it, for those that don't know, you need to find out. So if you're thinking about trying out arm wrestling, coming to a tournament, it's amazing. The people in it are awesome for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll run into a couple internet trolls that might fire some shit at you, but but they love the sport too. Even though you raid their mini bar in Tokyo and they get mad and think it was someone else, and it's caused rifts and relationships that last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I'll add on that too. I think one great thing before arm wrestling, I was a runner. One thing I liked about running is, although I wasn't built to be a runner, I can succeed on pure will. And it's an individual sport where if you really want to battle or outwill someone, you probably can, unless they're that much more gifted. Arm wrestling is kind of the same thing. One thing I do love about arm wrestling, I'm not the most excitable guy, but every once in a while I go on the table and a competition, and in my mind I think I've heard about this guy. I've never pulled him. I've never felt what he's like, but I have a feeling he could be stronger than me, and I'm a little bit worried. And anyway, so the match happens, and I find this is the absolute rush, and this is what addicts me. What I find addictive about the sport is the match stops, and I look across the table, and he's redlining, trying to pin me, and I'm at 70%, like it's a 60-pound dumbbell in my hand, what I can max out at 110, and I'm like, and I swing and pin him. I hit the table, and that just gets your dick hard. Like, that is fucking arm wrestling. I fucking love that. The ambiguity of not knowing if you can beat a guy or even have the power to stop him, and to realize a second and a half later that yes, you do. Sometimes that works on the opposite spectrum and you lose. But I think that is just an absolute fucking rush. Yeah. And the great thing about that rush is you can have it at 55 years old. You go into a tournament. Yes, you can't finish top 3, but this is young punk, and he lights you up, but you stop him. And he thinks he has you dead to rights, and you come back and you win on sheer will. That is magical, man. That's glory right there.
It's that little adrenaline, adrenaline rush, that anxiety you get before a fight.
Yeah.
Like if you have a scheduled fight in the neighborhood, you got to go to that feeling right before there, and then if it works out, the feeling afterward is like nothing else.
Yeah, because you've heard around the neighborhood that this guy, if he hits you, your lights out, and he has an incredible hit, and then he just sucker punches you, and you're like, that ain't that bad. And you fucking kick the shit out of me. That's arm wrestling can be like that. And like you said, what I love about arm wrestling, it's kind of like it simulates fighting, but there's no fucking head trauma. You're not, and I love that. Even football, I played football. There's bad repercussions long term in football. But so I think arm wrestling, if you're super competitive, you want to do it. So you're like 60. You love the individualistic aspect of it, where if you win, it's because of you, and if you lose, it's because of you. Man, that's your sport. I think it's great that way.
Well, I see, and like what you're touching on, like with the fight aspect, I always hear Devin equate arm wrestling to fighting, and I think like strategically and such it can be, but I don't get that feel at the during competition, especially against fiery opponents, like guys who are like chest beaters and they're trying to play mind games. I mean, how much are you guys affected by that? I mean, I largely don't. I mean, like intimidation in arm wrestling, I know Travis uses a lot of it. He uses it to get himself worked up, gain a little bit of advantage. Those mind games are definitely work. But my question to you guys is, does that really affect you? And if it doesn't, why not?
That's a good question. I remember in high school I was bullying this kid, some punk, and I ended up bullying him. And one day he turns around and I could see he saw red, and he was ready to fucking go. And although I was bigger and stronger, I wasn't ready to go. So I diffused it and I apologized. When every once in a while I go to a table and I see the guy is hell bent on beating me, he's fucking pissed, and if I come in nonchalant, I'm gonna get eaten. So when I see that, you'll see me step back from the table about 3-4 paces and gather my shit. I won't beat my chest, but I will gather my shit and know that when the ref says, I have to get everything I want, I cannot be taken, I cannot let him have any concessions in the setup. And when that ref says don't move, I have to be ready to fucking go all out, because this guy is putting his whole tournament on beating me, and he sees red. It's kind of like a fight. If one guy sees red and the other guy's coming in softly, one guy's going to get knocked out. I don't want to be knocked out, so I take a couple paces back and I tighten my shit. Yeah.
Mind games are everywhere, man, and it's not just right at the table at the time. I'll tell you a quick story. When I went up with, I went to the national championship very early in my arm wrestling career, and I think I had won the Worlds in 2002, and I went to the nationals the following year, and Mike Gould was there, and we were talking. He's asking me all these questions about, what'd you do in your matches? Oh, that's awesome, man, that's awesome. And then he's just building me up. And then he looks at me as we're walking. We get called up for a match, and then middle of just building me up, he looks at me and goes, "Nobody gives a shit what you used to be able to do." And he walks to the table. I was like, my mind was blown, and I ended up losing that match. I had nothing. Man, it messes with you, and you got to be ready for it. Travis is the next level. Mm-hmm. So there's nobody I'd think better than doing it than Travis. And I think arm wrestling with Travis, as many times as I have, it has prepared me for every other situation I could possibly be in. Right. And you shut it off. And it's not just at the table, it's leading up to it. Like I remember at the Arnold's many years ago, it's a long story about being abandoned in an airport and having to drive to Columbus from Toronto. But Matt Mask was one of the guys that left me there, and he was in my weight class when I got to Columbus, and I instantly, we were pulling the tournament, we worked our way up, and we're about to face each other, and day one ends. So now 24 hours later, it's Matt and I, first match of the day, and we know this, so I'm messing with him the whole time. And I'm saying crazy shit like Arnold used to say, I phoned my mother already and I told her I won, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And at breakfast, he just goes outside and pukes all over the sidewalk. He was so messed up. And we had a hell of a match. I ended up winning, but mind games are a big part of it. Oh, yeah. Sometimes guys need to just shut their internet off, get rid of their phone, shut off their social media for a month. And get ready, especially if you got a match with Devin, because he's going to mess with you that entire time. And it isn't even going to matter. By the time you get to that match, your head's already gone. You're messed with so much. And I could almost see that a little bit, maybe even in Dave. There was some genuine dislike there. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Muhammad Ali was an expert at that, getting into someone's head and getting them angry, because really you're not going to perform and be very focused if you're upset or angry or have some type of
there's weird repercussions to that. Muhammad Ali is arguably the greatest of all time, and Joe Frazier basically goes to his deathbed wishing ill will on Muhammad Ali. Yeah. So for me, I don't see where you done took that man to the point where he hates you with every fiber of his soul. When it comes to arm wrestling, is it worth it to do that to win an arm wrestling match?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I still look at arm wrestling as a very traditional, barbaric thing, where if I need my opponent to be a little bit weaker, maybe I'm not strong enough. I still believe that wrist to wrist, arm to arm, I shouldn't be running from anyone on earth under 170. And I figure if I got to get into his head, maybe I'm not the guy I think I am. So I just think it's for me, I don't think I should. I'll troll, don't get me wrong, I'll fucking troll. But the day of, I'm not looking to get in his head at all. I'm not looking to piss him off. I'm not looking to, I wish him the best and let's just have a good match. And I just hope that, because today, so many times reffing and setups can affect who the winner is. And I just really hope that's not the case in my matches, and the best man is the best man. I think that's the most tragic thing in today's sport is the better man didn't win because of X, Y, Z. But anyway, that's part of the sport now, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, boys, the comments are piling in still. I can't keep up with them. I'm sorry, you guys. We're at about the hour and a half mark. I think we should probably wrap it up here, guys. Paul, the floor is yours, man. What is next for you? And if you want to plug anything, now's your chance.
I don't know. I mean, next will probably be next WAL next season. See what the future holds there. I'll do some local tournaments here. I'll support James and up in CNY Arm Wrestlers. Always going to support him with the local stuff and just support the local events around here with my team. As far as plugs go, Lethal Arm Subs, my buddy Justin Bear. That's got to plug my buddy. But yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you for having me on, guys. I follow the show regularly. I think it's important what you guys are doing. I think you bring a different perspective that needs to be heard. I mean that wholeheartedly. Otherwise, I wouldn't tune in. I appreciate you both and kind of what you bring to the table. So anything I can ever do to help support you guys, just let me know.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Paul. I didn't know you're an Eagles fan. But now that I know you're an Eagles fan, are you old enough? Are you old enough? I'm not trying to provoke or troll. Are you old enough to remember Reggie White?
Yes.
Dude, in the mid '80s, that they had such a defense with Buddy Ryan and Reggie White was special. I remember Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, three most special players I've witnessed, and he was fun to watch. Yeah, he was
unbelievable. That club and rip was unbelievable.
Yeah.
As far as being an Eagles fan go, that's because I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You're either a Pittsburgh fan or an Eagles fan. You decide when you're like 2.
Yeah.
And when it comes to professional sports right now, football, I am not a professional football fan. I do not watch football.
Penn State?
I coach high school football.
Oh, high school.
By the time I put my 40-hour work week into that, I do not want to watch football on a Sunday. I hate football after football season. So I don't really I follow it loosely, and then in the playoffs when we're done. So,
awesome.
I've had so much football in my life that I could do without some of it.
All right, gentlemen. Do not hang up yet. I'm going to stop the recording so we make sure everything is good. For those watching, we had a ton of Q&A come in this week. We didn't get to any of it. So Gabi and I are going to have to shoot some of it later on, and that's okay too. All right, boys. Everybody, it's been a slice. But don't hang up, you guys.
No, I'm going anywhere.